supposed to do her after we ate.
Smart.
On purpose. So here we go. Thank you so much, Miss Caroline. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, the first thing I wanted to
Ladies,
mention is that
for devotion time.
in Romans 8:1, because we're talking about it can be a sensitive subject. Romans 8:1, I really want this to be encouraging. I want it to be uplifting. And I want to give you some simplified things that are actionable. But in Romans 8:1, it says, there is therefore now no condemnation. Say with me, no condemnation.
No condemnation. I like that.
So everything that I share is meant to empower you.
Amen.
Through Jesus. Proverbs 1:5 says, a wise man will hear. You know, sometimes we want to say, I just don't want to hear it. I can't hear that. You know, but a wise man will. And it says increased learning. There was a time when I was completely oblivious about all of this, but the Lord began to call me to understand health. And because the more we do, the more we can be useful to Him. Some of that was referred to already. There used to be a song we sang in college, let me burn out for thee, dear Lord, burn and wear out for thee. And you know, I appreciate the passion and the willingness to give all. But we want to be usable and useful. And another thought that I always have, and I'm very thankful, and we absolutely should first turn to the prayer list, the prayer, grapevine of the church. But I would rather be doing the praying than be the one that has to be on the prayer list.
Amen.
So that's kind of where we're going, is that we can be a help to others. I also want to mention, because there has been a real onslaught against truth and healthful information.
Yes.
Many of the things that you may even try to verify that I share here, I want you to know it's been well researched, it is accurate. There is a great deal of misinformation and disinformation. The pharmaceutical industry is trillions of dollars. They, in fact, 3 of the major pharmaceuticals in recent years, they all lost lawsuits and had to pay out. Just to give you an idea of how wealthy and financially undergirded they are, they paid out $3 billion lawsuits, and they're still doing just dandy. Okay, so they have a a strategy for misinformation. But I want to take you to one of my favorite verses, Psalm 103, verse 5. It says, who satisfieth thy mouth with good things. And then he tells why. He says, so that thy youth is renewed. We'd love to believe that that's possible. I always like the phrase, I'm not getting older, I'm getting better. That was an old slogan from a few years ago. And it says, this is the day the Lord has made, we will rejoice. So every year you have your birthday, you can rejoice and say, thank you, Jesus.
Yes.
You've given me another year. So I really appreciated what you focused on about, it's not merely about vanity. It is about how you feel. When we are in good health, we feel great. Those endorphins that you were mentioning. And when we feel our best, first of all, we're able to focus on others instead of, how am I even going to get through today? I feel lousy. We can focus on others, we can try to lift them up, encourage them, and we can share more smiles. Somebody that's bouncing around with a smile on their face, better guess than not, they're probably feeling pretty good, because it's hard to hide it when we don't. So we increase our happy quotient. So I'm going to share with you some simple things to increase our happy quotient. Psalm 91:16 goes on that same theme about long life. It says, the Lord's promises, we love Psalm 91. It talks about protection, about the Lord being there for us. It says, with long life will I satisfy him. And a lot of people say, I sure hope I don't grow old. No, I don't want that to happen to me. Well, it's better than the alternative.
Yeah.
So God's intention is that every year He gives us is meant to be a blessing not only to ourselves but to others. We see where God began to set the parameters for the lifespan when He put man in the garden. Originally He meant for man to be immortal.
Right.
Then sin happened.
Yeah.
So He shortened the lifespan because the wages of sin is death. And we had people like Methuselah lived to 969, Jared, the father of Enoch, 962, and Adam 930. So at that point they were just about living a millennium. Then you get to following the flood where God had just about had at that point, where the wickedness of man was only, wicked
right.
continually. And at that point in Genesis 6:3 He says, my spirit shall not strive with man forever. Because he also is flesh, nevertheless his days shall be 120 years. So you go from immortality in the garden, after the fall several hundred years, and after the flood 120. And I love this. Moses. So Deuteronomy 34:7, it says of Moses, his eyes were not dim. It says he was 120. In fact, let me go there right now. Deuteronomy. Moses was 120 years old, so there's that promised lifespan that God gave. When he died, his eye was not dim.
Wow.
He didn't have to use glasses like I am today. By the way, I just came from the eye doctor this week, and my prescription dramatically improved. So the things I am doing apparently is working. So that's an encouragement. But his eyes weren't dim, nor his natural force, or that means strength, abated. So
Wow.
you've got somebody here with his long life being satisfyingly well. Okay? But what about today? What about what happens in our contemporary society? Okay, that was Moses, which was like 3,500 years ago. Pastor, could you show this clip? So I'll tell you what you're going to be seeing. You're going to be seeing a clip of a gentleman. Yes, you will hear right when they first state it, but I'm going to state it first. He's 114 years old. At the time this video is taken, listen to the clarity with which he speaks.
Wow.
And at that point, he was walking 1 or 2 miles every day.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
No tricks, no
Well, yeah,
cheat.
but
So
this-
Pastor, would you play this little clip?
You could say 114-year-old Bernardo Lapayo was made to last.
My mother, 105, she went to sleep. My grandmother, 107, she went to sleep. My father, 91, he went to sleep. Everybody asks me, what's your secret? I say, obedience and moderation.
What's your
Obedience
secret?
and moderation.
Obedience and moderation. Let's say that together.
Obedience and moderation.
So, in fact, let me just pull this out here. So he said, this is Bernardo, 114 years old. And by the way, the day he died, he had walked his 2-mile walk.
Wow.
The day he died. His mother lived to 105 and died in her sleep. Grandmother 107 and died in her sleep. Father 91 died in his sleep as well. So it wasn't getting old and decrepit. It was God fulfilling. Scripture talks about God fulfilling the number of our days, and that's
Yes.
our goal.
Yes.
To let Him fulfill the number of our days so we fulfill His purpose. Bernardo Lapallo, he believed in eating right and living right. He said, eat properly and get your rest. And by the way, no matter how well you eat, you cannot substitute for sacrificing rest.
Yes.
Proper rest. A lot's to be said about that. So it's possible to live long, healthy lives with stamina and strength. So remember that obedience and moderation. And just as was also pointed out earlier, as I share these general principles, and you can let me know when I'm about at half point, so that because lots of good, awesome, wonderful stuff I don't want to lose out on. We have to be easy on ourselves. Okay, when I first started my journey, I realized probably the first thing I needed to give up was sugar.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't dealing with like having too many calories, but I knew that sugar was dangerous. It reduces your immune system dramatically. To my shock, I found out there's almost 3 tablespoons of sugar in a standard 12-ounce soda. Oh my gosh, that's horrid. It took me 5 years to give up sugar. 5 years. They say it's as addictive as cocaine. I don't know about cocaine, never touched any of those street drugs, but it was hard. I tried everything, every substitute. By the way, don't go from bad to worse. Don't try any chemical sweeteners. Very bad for the brain. Okay, Isaiah 1:19 is another verse which I just love. It says, if you be willing and obedient, you will eat the best of the land. We all like to pull up to a table with lots of nice food. God's giving us a promise right there. And again, that verse Psalm 103:5 says, satisfies our mouth with good things. So the heart of this begins with obedience before the Lord. He promises in his word, and it's a sign of his faithfulness and blessing in our lives, that he will give us of the best of the land. So I'm actually not only going to talk about food, and I'm going to be rushing through this, trying to get it all in, okay? But I'm going to be talking about our lips. There's more than just food that enters our body for nutrition. There's a principle of 3s, and it applies with the body. You can live almost 3 weeks, or you can live up to 3 weeks, even by general principle, a little more. But it's approximately 3 weeks without food. You can live about 3 days without water, but you can only live about 3 minutes without air. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, because I want to give you things that don't cost anything, so that you can immediately implement certain things. And one of them is taking in the air to give your body the oxygen. They say every hour you should be on your feet, even for a couple of minutes. It will jumpstart your brain. You get oxygen into your blood. It rushes to all of your organs. They all jump up and down, go, hey, we got a new supply of oxygen. And your brain will function. Your brain will be clearer. Your mood will be lifted. So I encourage you to get in the habit of frequently take 3 or 4 deep breaths. You don't want to do a whole lot more than that, especially standing up. You don't want to hyperventilate and pass out. But if you're lagging on energy a little bit, don't reach for the energy drink. Start by just inhaling and taking a nice deep breath. Let's try it together just once. And breathe. Again. And breathe out. One more time. And breathe out. And you know, when you yawn, if you notice that when a person yawns, they usually, after there's a little bit of this going on, they then usually take this big intake of breath. The yawn is the body's effort to reinvigorate some energy when you're kind of flagging. Okay, so in addition to that, we are going to talk, and the first thing it says when God created Adam, it says he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. So we're talking air as being the breath of life. And it says that man became a living soul. So we want to not forget these most important things, because we tend to breathe shallow, that idea of being sedentary. In fact, I've often thought one of the greatest benefits of exercise is not merely that we're in motion, but when we're in motion, our body is drawing on the reserves of air, and we're suddenly oxygenating. It can even be to your benefit to crack the window at night and have a little fresh oxygen coming in. Sometimes you'll even sleep better that way. Okay. Now we're going to talk about water. And it's interesting to me, one of the first features God put in the garden was 4 rivers. He talks about rivers of living water, rivers of life. The body is primarily water. In fact, the blood is half water and half cells. Our organs depend on it. The brain is about 75% water. The kidneys 83%. The heart 79%. The liver 86%. Your liver detoxifies your body. It's 86% water. That's about the percentage of a watermelon. You know, if you don't have that water, all of your organs start to malfunction. or are a reduced function. You want to improve function of your body without going to the doctor, without yet another prescription medication. Intake more water. See to it that it's a good quality too. Your skin is 64%. Before you slap on the moisturizer, make sure you are drinking enough water to hydrate your skin. You cannot compensate for bad inner hydration by slapping more cream on your face. So the blood 83%, bones 22, muscles 75%. You can say, oh, my muscles hurt, my muscles hurt. I actually was able to give up chiropractors, which I had spent a few $1,000s on as a result of a few minor fender benders and whatever. I was in and out of chiropractic until I learned about water. The day I learned about water, and chiropractors have their place, but the day I learned about water, I gave up chiropractors and all that money stayed in my pocket. One day I was literally walking the beach and oh, my shoulder hurt so bad, and I thought, this is it. I have to go to the doctor this time, to the chiropractor, because the way it's kinking and hurting, something's out of place. And then I realized I'd been walking the beach for 3 or 4 hours in the hot sun. I was dehydrated. So on the way home, I started sucking down a couple bottles of water, and after a few hours at night, I was perfectly fine. Okay, the body is referred to as an ocean. It's the ocean of our body. In fact, there are world-renowned doctors who literally say that all diseases are either the symptoms or the consequences of dehydration. And what does the hospital do? The first thing you show up and they get you in the room. And what is in that IV? There's usually saline in it.
Yeah.
Okay, the additional factor on this is water provides, as far as a nutrient to our body, it's loaded with minerals. In fact, they had a herd of cattle in Ireland once that was living 3 times as long as that breed of cattle ought to live. And the scientists were going bonkers. How come they're living so long? They finally traced it to magnesium in the water. And so the cattle literally, so if you were, say, magnesium deficient, what might that do for altering your lifespan? So I recommend that along with drinking water, if you can encourage yourself to get yourself a sea salt, plain sea salt, read the ingredients, nothing added, just a sea salt. Himalayan is wonderful, but your standard supermarket will have usually a $2 bottle of sea salt. Put a sprinkle of sea salt in because it has 84 minerals in it. Those trace minerals are highly important. It gives you the electrolytes. Your brain will start to function better. When I started using Himalayan salt, I noticed my brain started firing. Boom, boom, boom. So it can increase your brain function. And it says this, regarding water and the blood. The Bible mentions blood 400 times, William Shakespeare 700. It feeds, cleans, delivers fresh oxygen to the 100 trillion cells. It bolsters our immune system. It's the foundation of our very existence. But what is interesting, it says the watery portion of the blood, the plasma, has a concentration of salt and other ions remarkably similar. This is your blood, the plasma in your blood, remarkably similar to seawater. So much so that during the world wars, when they were at a shortage of blood for transfusions, they actually diluted, sterilized, and injected transfused seawater to save the lives of soldiers. That was taken from the New York Times, October 21st, 2008. Okay, now we get to food for our topic now. And I'm going to talk about God's food, God's way. Genesis 1:29, and God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed. He didn't say Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, I know. Oh, I used to be a Dunkin' Donut girl. He gave every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in which there is a fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. What was God's first grocery store? Anybody want to take a guess? It was a garden. It was a garden. You had fig trees over here. You had things like fruit or oranges or peaches or pears. You had all that wonderful stuff, and there were the vegetables growing. And So that was the first grocery store, what God meant for man to eat from. Now I will give you one key. Okay, here's your first tip on food, is the perimeter of a grocery store. That's where you want to majorly stay. Now occasionally there are some things in the interior of the store that are dry goods, like the sea salt. You'll find that in an interior aisle. You'll find like dried beans and things like that that are very helpful, or perhaps oats, things like that that are very helpful. But for the most part, you want to walk the perimeter. First of all, it makes your grocery trip shorter. Do you know how much money you'll save? People tell me, oh, you must spend so much money for this quality food, because I happen to eat organic. It just means we don't include chemicals in our diet. But when you leave out the chips and the pretzels and the cookies, the Oreos, and the pastries, when you leave that, I know, when you leave that out, you save so much money. So go on the perimeter, because there you've got your produce, dairy, yogurt, butter, cheese, kefir. These are the same foods Abraham was eating. Abraham was eating. It refers to butter in Isaiah. These are the same foods. So ask yourself, is this a food that likely Abraham was eating, that Isaac was eating, that in biblical times they were eating? Now I'm going to go to the guidance that we get. I've got to take a sip of my water too. What did I just do with it? Oh, there it is. I've got to take a sip of mine and get dry. And I'm halfway through it here, actually further than that.
I won't cut you short, just.
Okay, Daniel 1:5. The king appointed them, this is Daniel and his friends, a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, and at the end thereof they might stand before the king. They were offered the finest foods with the most careful preparation, the most delicious, the most appetizing. But it also says in verse 17 that God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And I imagine it's fairly similar if you go to a restaurant buffet. You've got those buffets filled with refined, processed, stripped of nutrients, contaminated. And what happens is he looks at that table and he knows in his heart, first of all, there were Old Testament biblical laws. He's like, I should not be eating this. The king is giving this to us so we'll be stronger and healthier, but that's not going to do it. And we need to discern that, because a lot of times packages will say natural. What are the big ones? Natural flavor. Do you know what comes under the category of natural flavors? I won't even discuss it here. It's appalling. It's appalling. But he looks and says, I know they say this is supposed to be good, it's not good for me. So he chose not to defile himself with a portion of the king's meat nor wine. You will have to make choices at times, and every person it's different. You must make the choice for you of what you know the Lord is laying on your heart is best for you. Long before he was well known or had established his influence for God among the Babylonians, he was being faithful in his spirit. You show your faithfulness. It says, what? He that is faithful in little, I will make faithful over much. So begin by showing that faithfulness in your personal life. Our faithfulness turns up in unusual places. Our dinner plate, breakfast plate. I had to give up breakfast sausage. You know, those cute little, you microwave them for 1 minute. I loved those. They didn't love my body. And I don't mean calorie-wise. I mean, they're loaded with stuff that's just not the best. So we make that choice. Breakfast plate. And what did he have to do? It had to be awkward. And you will be put in awkward positions. Do you know how hard it is to turn someone down? Can you imagine? They were like, oh, okay, you're the strangers in the land, and excuse me, the king's table isn't good enough. Okay, all right, we got you all figured out here. It can be very awkward. You know, maybe somebody's prepared a nice dessert to bring to a buffet, and you're there, and they'll be like did you taste Aunt Martha's brownies? Oh, go have one of hers. Oh, and then go let her know, because she likes to know that everybody appreciates. And you so want to be part of making them feel good. Yeah. But you have to make those choices. And so I wrote down, what's that song? Dare to be what? A Daniel.
Yes.
And it goes on. It says, dare to be a Daniel what? Dare to stand alone. Standing by a purpose to heeding God's command. So dare to stand alone, dare to have a purpose firm. He determined in his heart. So we need to determine that in our heart. And here's a real good verse for guiding us. 1 Corinthians 6:12. All things are lawful.
Yes.
No, you're not going to hell if you have a cupcake. Yeah, you might get the devil's look from somebody in the family if they're like trying to keep you on the straight and narrow. But it says, although all things are lawful, not all things are expedient. And here's a kicker. All things are lawful to me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Whoa.
Yeah.
Years ago, I loved Cheetos or cheese puffs, the cheese. And I would get out of my work with Ella being in customer service, and I would crack one of those little bags. It made the ride shorter going home. But I tell you, you start with just a few. I would eat the whole bag, 45 minutes. Delicious. But I tell you, my stomach would feel like afterward, like, why did you do that? So we don't want to be brought under the power of any. So Daniel 1:8, Daniel purposed in his heart he would not defile himself. We must determine God's loving intentions for our lives more often with intentional food choices. And as I conclude, first of all, love and forgive yourself. As many times as you need to. I told you, I was on a journey for 5 years just for number one, starting with the sugar. And then from there I moved to other things. I would just load it up in my coffee, a little coffee with my sugar, and I was happy for the day. So as I kind of sum up what we've talked about, I'm going to encourage you to breathe more. That air that you need, you can't go without for 3 minutes. I'm going to encourage you to drink more. That water that you can't do without for more than 3 days. And I'm going to encourage you to improve your food choices. Ecclesiastes 10:17 says, Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles, and thy princes eat in due season for strength, and not for drunkenness, which means not for indulgence. We should aim to eat for strength, to be more capable. So we need to pay attention to what we eat, but also when we eat. Not only the what, but the timing. And that's different things for different people. Some people, if they have a little protein snack before bed, they will sleep really well. So you have to go, I always say my body does not lie. Neither does yours. So learn to listen to it with the Lord's guidance. We also, though, need rest, and even your digestive system needs rest. So that timing thing is, there are times, give your body a little break, either a few hours or sometimes maybe a half a day. Let that digestive system just rest a little bit. And it also, I guess, helps to kickstart the metabolism more appropriately. So be like Daniel, driven by purpose. Have a goal in mind. Be at your best. I like the fact that our current First Lady, she has a program called Be Best. And so that's what I'm going to encourage you, like Melania does. Find the best you. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, For God has not given us a spirit of fear. So first of all, don't be afraid of starting. That's what was shared. Go ahead and start. However you can start. If it just means learning to say no to that second cookie, whatever is your first goal that God guides you. He hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love. Okay, back to love yourself. Enough to honor yourself with improved food choices. And a sound mind. There's that discipline. Gently discipline yourself in. I really appreciate when you talked about starting the exercise gently. So start this gently. So be ready to forgive yourself. And I want to kind of wrap up towards the end with just a couple more verses. But 1 Peter 2:9 says, "Ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, do you know what the next word is? A peculiar people."
Peculiar.
And sometimes you're going to come off as peculiar.
Amen.
Michelle asked me the $1 million question last Sunday. She said, "So what do you have in your protein drink?" I almost hesitated to tell her because it requires like a lot of description and a lot of explanation. But there will be some times when your food choices or you're turning down something may seem peculiar. But you know what? We already are acquainted with that as Christians. Get adapted to that in order to protect your health, because if you do what others are unwilling now, you'll be able to enjoy what they're unwilling later. You know, I can still walk down a beach. I've got a dear friend that's my age, and I know that 10 years ago she was crippled. She came to see me. She couldn't even walk from the picnic table onto a beach, and she was my age. So, 1 Corinthians 6:19, it's a verse about your body being the temple of the Holy Ghost.
Yes.
And so you've heard the WWJD, which is what?
What would Jesus do?
Well, I've got a new one for you. WWJE. What would Jesus eat? Okay? Ask yourself when you sit down and there's a plate in front of you, or you've picked up your plate to walk the buffet or the table, what would Jesus eat? Because actually, that's the question you should ask. Is it something that actually literally could have been on his plate back then? Is it dates? Is it seeds? Is it bread? They talk about bread of life. They had those things. So breathe deep, drink more, walk the perimeter of the store to shop, use real foods, not refined and processed, invented and created. This came from a source I will not disclose. It wasn't from a house, but I'm glad it was here because I actually wanted to pick up something so I could read. It's like, so it's got, now this is supposed to be like a honey cinnamon bun. And it's got distilled monoglycerides and calcium carbonate and datum and annatto and calcium propionate and natamycin and potassium sorbate and sodium acid pyrophosphate. It sounds like it's not a honey cinnamon bun. It sounds like it's the recipe of a firecracker. Pyrophosphate. So I always had one rule I would joke about. I said, if I can't pronounce it, I won't put it in my mouth. So ask yourself, what would Jesus eat? And he said, be perfect. We know we can't be, but it's our calling. So with this, recognize we know you won't be able to be perfect on the journey, but work towards that. It's our calling. God bless you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. Oh, that was awesome. I heard all kinds of things. Food the way God made it.
Yeah.
Right? If it's the way God made it, it's good. It's good. You eat it. If it's been through the factory somewhere and it's changed into something unrecognizable but still really tastes good, it's probably really not good. And it's easy, you know, we think about the kids. It's easy when they're young, they can eat anything, right? And they run it all off, and it's really not healthy, even for them, to eat anything. That's when a lot of those habits begin and start. Pastor has started a journey himself. I don't know if maybe he wants to come share his journey. Maybe he would like to introduce that'd be awesome. Come on now. I know this is a ladies' thing. I'm sorry. Everybody's appropriate right now. Well,
That's fine.
I'll be honored to let Pastor come up here for a second. He can share his little bit of journey.
So, I'm 61 years old. I'm too fat for my own good. And when I was a teenager, I worked from basically about the age 12 until about the age 25. I worked as a stuntman. I mean, I professionally fell off horses, fell off roofs, flipped over hitching rails. Basically, long and short of it, I beat my body up. Okay. At 61 years old, I am paying for that. And much of what we've come across in in our journey is that I found some things that are God made, okay, that are holistic in nature,
Yes.
that have really helped me personally, to the point where we use them. We spend a couple of $100s a month supplying ourselves to keep me out of pain and keep me in health. Okay. My wife teaches at public school. This was year number 5. She's the only teacher in her school who does not get sick. Okay, public school. Katie had a cyst that the doctors insisted would need surgery. We started using this. Cyst went away. She went in for the surgery. They said, we can't do this. There's nothing there. It's just, it's stuff that's worked for us, and it is holistic in nature. I like what God makes. It works better than what man makes. It's not a cure for anything. It is a protection and a guard for your overall health. And I can tell you what it's done for us. Could spend hours talking about it, but I'd rather, get somebody who knows the properties and knows what it can do and how it can be a blessing to everybody. And with that, I'm going to introduce Miss Jill Kirian. She's going to come up and just give you a few minutes on what this does for people in general. Miss Jill.
Oh, I'll be glad to. Thank you. Thank you, Pastor Chris.
I know. Yeah, Pastor peanut chocolate at dinner.
It's an honor to be here and speak with you, and I appreciate Pastor's invitation for me to come and talk about essential oils, because this is something I'm very passionate about. And I believe that everything that we need to be healthy and whole is here on our planet. That our Creator has not abandoned us. It's all here, and we just need to sometimes rediscover those natural solutions and learn how to put them to use. So I'm gonna share some information that I have learned, but I'm gonna talk specifically about one company, and that company is doTERRA. And I'm going to explain as I talk. You're going to pick up on little things that I talk about that makes them very different. It's a very different essential oil company from most that you probably have been exposed to, and I know they're out there. They're everywhere these days.
Young Living, I've heard a lot about.
Yeah, a lot. I have a really good friend named Vic, and Vic struggles with anxiety. And she also has some digestive problems, and when her anxiety flares, her digestive issues kind of go along that. It's in that loop, right? And Vic was having a hard time participating in everything that she wanted to do and getting to all of the family events that she wanted to get to. She always would want to know where the bathroom was so that she could plan, like when she was going to be able to hit the bathroom. And Vic's sister let her know that she was getting married, which was exciting, and her sister was going to have a destination wedding. And that made Vic go, ooh, a destination wedding, how am I going to deal with that? And she was sharing this with me, and I said, well, essential oils are safe. That's one of 3 really cool things about essential oils. They are safe for all ages. They have no side effects. And in the case of doTERRA, they're CPTG essential oils. And what that stands for is Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade. Pure because they're honoring that whole plant profile. They're not taking anything out, and they're not adding anything in. They're honoring the way that plant was created. And potent because they're paying attention to therapeutic values, because they know that where a plant grows and the soil and the condition that that plant is in makes that plant thrive, and it also makes us thrive, that when it comes from that location. And they even take that to the extent of they seek out families that have been distilling these plants and have generational instructions that have been passed down on how to do this and how to get the most potency to that essential oil. And doTERRA finds these families and buys their oils exclusively and makes sure that they're receiving on-time payments for what they're providing. So essential oils are safe. They have no side effects and they're safe for all ages. So who can tell me the first really cool thing about essential oils?
Safe.
Yes. Yes. I've got a prize for you.
Oh, I like prizes.
Yeah. I tried to find a container with all my labels up. So just give me a second. And where is it? I'm looking for peppermint. There it is. Peppermint.
Oh, well,
Peppermint is
thank you.
amazing for headache.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great breath freshener.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awesome oil to use. Enjoy. Okay, so that's the first really cool thing about essential oils. They're safe. The second really cool thing about essential oils is they're effective. They're more effective than most modern medicine.
That's right.
Yes.
So essential oils, 1 drop of essential oil has 40 trillion million molecules. So they're tiny molecules. Now when you compare that to most modern medicine, that's a synthetic, a water-based product. And so when you compare a synthetic to an essential oil molecule, it's like looking at a basketball and a tennis ball. The synthetic's a basketball and the essential oil is like a tennis ball. Now, essential oils are also what they call lipophilic. And what that really just means is that they're fat-loving. And our bodies, I loved your presentation, awesome, yes. And those cells that you were talking about, they all have a fatty membrane. And that fatty membrane, so the synthetic water-based products can't penetrate that. But you know what? Essential oils do. They penetrate that fatty cell membrane. So there's 2 things that are detrimental to our cells. Bacteria, which hangs out on the outside, and viruses, which hang out on the inside and replicate inside our cells. Essential oils actually shut down bacteria, and then they can penetrate that cell wall and stop the virus from replicating. They are powerful agents for health. And this knowledge is becoming much more widespread, and this is why essential oils are becoming the go-to thing that you hear so much about. So what's the second really
Effective.
cool thing?
Effective.
Effective. You were on that. You were on that. She was. She's like, there's prizes involved.
No, it's actually kind of interesting.
I've got a sample of On Guard for you.
Oh, that's
On Guard is 90% effective at attenuating the flu virus.
That's right. Cool.
So yeah, it's
That
part of
would be
my
great.
daily routine these days. You can put a drop in your water. It's a little bit spicy. You can also rub it on the bottom of your feet. It's awesome for immune support. So the third really cool thing about essential oils is that they're affordable. They're pennies per drop. Now in my family, my grandson lives in Virginia, and when his mom feels like he's got something going on with his ear, I think there's like maybe an ear infection brewing or something, what does she do?
Oils.
She gets out lavender and tea tree. She puts a drop of each in her hand, and then she rubs that oil around the outside of the ear and down the neck. Now she might do that again before he goes to bed or in the night if he's up in the night. But normally within 12 hours, everything's fine. Now that's about 64 cents of essential oil. And that saved a trip to the physician, taking time off from work possibly, not to mention what in their toolbox, what they would have offered to him would have disrupted gut flora, disrupted hormone balance, lots of other things that these essential oils don't do because there's no side effects, because they're completely safe and effective. And they're affordable, pennies per drop. So, what's the third really cool thing?
Affordable.
Yay, yay. Affordable. So I've got lavender. Are you familiar with lavender?
Yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
It's known as the Swiss Army knife of essential oils.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's great for cuts and scrapes and burns. My mother-in-law actually burned her hand, and we just poured lavender on, and like within hours you can even tell that there was a burn there. It also is great for relaxing and for sleep. You know, lavender is amazing, and it's one that you can actually use without dilution, but directly on. So who can tell me what the three cool things are? All three.
Affordable.
Safe, effective, and affordable.
There you go.
Awesome.
Good job.
You did it. I've got wild orange for you.
Oh, that's my daughter-in-law's favorite.
It's great. It's great uplifting scent. Just drop it in your hands and smell it, and it just makes you feel better.
Don't confuse it around children.
Gives them a little energy, right?
Yes. They already have a lot of energy.
Okay, so now let's talk about the ways to use essential oils. So the first way to use an essential oil is aromatically. Now, if everybody would just pinch their nose right here. What you're pinching is actually your olfactory nerve, and that olfactory nerve goes directly to your olfactory bulb and the limbic area of your brain. It's the only of our senses that's connected directly to our brain. And so, aromatic use of essential oils is extremely powerful. If you've ever been to the dentist and had laughing gas, you know they put the mask on and they say, count backwards. And how fast does it take for that to work?
Quickly.
Yeah, it's fast, right? So essential oils work just as quickly. And they're actually more effective. So a great way to manage mood, to clear the air, there's a wonderful sense of mood changing with essential oils. You can actually drop some of the blends into the diffuser and change the mood in the house, which is a really nice little hack. And like you were saying, like liven the kids up, you can chill them out.
Yes, there you go.
So that's the first way to use an essential oil is aromatically. You can drop it in your hands and inhale it, or you can put it into a diffuser. So what's the first way to use an essential oil?
Aromatic.
Yes, aromatically. And I have a sample of Breathe for you.
Oh, that's nice.
Thank you. You're welcome. You can apply that to your chest. It helps you open up your breathing. It has saved marriages by reducing snoring.
Want a cotton ball, drop it in a plastic bag, you in a plastic bag,
Yes.
breathe.
Yes. And great reminder to breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe. Okay, so the second way to use an essential oil is topically. And when you're using an essential oil topically, it's a good rule of thumb to dilute it. Use a carrier oil like a fractionated coconut oil or a jojoba. And what that carrier oil actually does is help facilitate that oil into your skin, so it gets in a little bit faster. And it also hangs on to that essential oil well, because these are aromatic compounds, so they evaporate quite quickly. And when you're using a carrier oil, that's holding on to that, so you're getting that full benefit for a little bit longer. And when you're using essential oils topically, it's a great way to target an area. Like if you've got a complaint with your knee or your shoulder, you can go right to that area and use that essential oil topically. Now, I also like to clean my house with essential oils because I am not into the chemical products, and it's actually much more affordable to clean my house with essential oils. Like a drop of lemon essential oil is 4 cents, and I can like pretty much clean my whole kitchen with a container, a spray bottle with a drop of lemon and squirt down surfaces. Yeah. So second way to use an essential oil is topically. And that's a great way to target areas, and be sure to dilute, because some essential oils are spicy or hot and they might irritate your skin, so it's another good reason to dilute. So what's the second way to use
Tropical.
Yes.
Topical, not tropical.
Tropical.
I'll take the tropics.
Tropical. Deep blue.
Deep blue rub.
Yay.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Yeah, if you overdo it in the garden.
Wow.
I'm gonna throw my knee right now.
Deep blue rub actually stimulates new fibroblasts, which pretty much says, like, it just stimulates healing for ligaments, tissues. It's amazing stuff. So, and then there's three ways, right? Because we talked about how powerful 3 is. So the third way to use an essential oil is internally.
That's right.
And in the case of doTERRA, it's the most recommended way to use an essential oil. And because we're talking about CPTG, Certified Pure Therapeutic Grade Oils, and some of you, if you've used essential oils in the past, or if you have a history of using essential oils, you've got bells and whistles going off. Never, 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 never use an essential oil internally. That's antiquated information. It's out of date. With CPTG, because we're not using solvents to pull these essential oils out, we're doing it with steam distillation. We're honoring that whole plant profile. There's nothing added, nothing taken away. So internal use of doTERRA products shows exponential health benefits. Our cells speak the same language as these plants. We have an innate intelligence that speaks the same language as the innate intelligence in the plant. And so research on essential oils is up 400% in the last few years. Actually, Roseman University did a 2-year independent study and identified doTERRA as the only essential oil company on the market that they would use in their studies, for one thing, but also because every bottle, every batch came through in their testing as being the same high quality, high potency. It doesn't matter if you buy a bottle of frankincense today or next year. You can be sure that it's going to be just as potent and pure, CPTG certified. And so when you're using an essential oil internally, you can do that with an empty veggie cap. You can actually drop a bottle of some of the oils right under your tongue. You can add them to your food. Lemon essential oil is a great one to add to your water. And it actually is a nice slow steady detox because those citrus oils pass through that cell membrane and bind to toxins and then pull them right back out. So if you're adding a drop of lemon essential oil to your stainless steel or your glass water bottle, you're actually doing a slow steady detox of pulling petrochemicals, prescription meds, anything that's built up in your system, that's going to help eliminate them. So using an essential oil, the third way is internal. Ooh, who was it? Who got it?
It was like 3 of them all at once.
Yeah, it was. I've got 2, so.
I can't use anything with lemons.
Oh, you're not using lemon? Okay, Samantha.
Yes, I'm
Internal.
allergic to
There's
lemon.
lemon. You're welcome. Lemon is actually the oil of focus. Do you not want lemon?
I can't use it at all.
Okay.
Yes,
I think one of you did. I thought something came from over here. So
That's my
lemon.
recipe to like yeah.
We won't do that. And that's a really, so I'm glad you brought that up, Samantha, because actually doTERRA essential oils have no proteins in them because they're actually distilled beyond that. There is nothing in them to cause an allergic reaction that's a physical, but you can have emotional reactions to essential oils because our brain ties scents with memories. And so you can have an emotional reaction, but you can't have a physical allergy reaction to one of these essential oils. So those are the 3 ways: aromatic, topical, internal. Now another little tip on internal use: make sure when you're using an essential oil internally that it has a supplement label fact. Right on the bottle it should have a supplement label, and then it also has an expiration date. Those are the 2 things you want to look for. You also want to have a reference or somebody that you're working with when you're using essential oils just to turn to, because now I'll take a bottle of frankincense and I'll put a drop under my tongue and it doesn't bother me. Some people don't care for the taste, But if you were to do that with oregano, for instance,
Ow.
yeah, that would be intense. That would be hot and intense. So it's just really good to have a support system and have somebody that's supporting you in your use, because oregano is really powerful. It's a huge immune boosting essential oil, but it's not something you'd want to drop right into your tongue. Yeah. All right, so there's 3 ways to purchase doTERRA essential oils. You can buy them retail, which is like walking into a spa and picking up 1 bottle of oil and paying full retail price. And I don't recommend that for anyone. That's the most expensive way to buy an essential oil. And then there's wholesale purchases. And doTERRA operates much like BJ's or Costco in that you pay an annual fee and you get wholesale pricing for the year. And then you can purchase essential oils below retail, or below wholesale, excuse me. And that is the only way that I purchase my essential oils, is below wholesale. And if any of you are wanting to explore that and learn more about that, let me know, because I'm happy to explain how that happens. So you're probably thinking, wow, this is like a lot more than I expected to hear about essential oils. And I just want you to know that doTERRA wants to support you on your essential oil journey. And for that reason, they created starter kits. And the starter kits come with the most commonly used essential oils. And when you get started with doTERRA with one of these kits, they waive that wholesale membership fee. So you can actually get started at a discount. And when people start with essential oils and get started with a kit, they always say to me, I wish I had gone bigger. Because they do discount those kits substantially when you first get started with the program. And they really don't want you to have 1 bottle of tea tree in case you have a blemish, or to have a tube of deep blue in case you overdo it in the garden. This company really wants you to make over your medicine cabinet. They want you to have on hand the things that you need to take care of yourself and your family. And it actually, it helps heal our planet. And it also supports all of these families that are creating and distilling these essential oils. They really are a win-win company. They have huge integrity, and they actually have created what they call co-impact sourcing, which is beyond fair trade labor practices. They do everything they can to support people. One of their mottos is source the best, help the most. And they take that right down to you, and they provide the best customer service and support. And part of that is they like to have you have a community you can turn to when you have questions or when you just need support. And I'm very honored to have Pastor Chris and Michelle as part of my community, and I would love to have you join us. If that's something that you're interested in doing, I have information on how you can do that and join us. But let me finish off by telling you about Vic. We started off and I told you about Vic and all of her anxiety and her digestive issues. Well, after I got through my spiel and I explained to her how they were safe, effective, affordable, and how to use them, she decided it was time for her to get started. She really wanted to make it to that destination wedding. It really meant a lot to her to be in those wedding photos. And so we started her off with a kit. She was using Digestin topically over her abdomen. She was also putting a drop of Digestin in a little bit of water and drinking that before each meal. And she started diffusing lavender in her bedroom at night. And one of the first things she said to me was, my digestion is definitely better. Like, my digestion is definitely better. Like, I'm blown away. And then in a few more days, she said to me, you know what? I think I'm sleeping better. Is that possible? And I said, yes, it's very possible. And like you mentioned, sleep is critical for our health. We have to get sleep. Okay, so time's getting closer. And Vic starts looking at airline tickets. And she's like, I have hope. I really have hope that I'm going to be able to be at this wedding. And that was about the time when I introduced Vic to Melissa. And I don't know if any of you know Melissa. Melissa is a really, really powerful essential oil for anxiety. And I showed her how to put her thumb on the top of that bottle of Melissa and invert it. And because Melissa is so powerful, but it's a little pricey, so it's nice to use as little as possible. So she's wetting her thumb, and she pushes the thumb to the roof of her mouth, and her anxiety melts. You can see it physically melt as you watch her do that. And I just have to let you know that she made it to that wedding and she's in those pictures and she's eternally grateful for what doTERRA has provided for her and for her family. And so one more thing about doTERRA is there's usually 3 types of people that get started with doTERRA. There's a person that has something like a health condition going on and they're really frustrated either with their results or with the tools that they're using to get their results. The second kind of person is somebody that's sitting here thinking, I know at least my mom, maybe my aunt, like you're already thinking of other people that could use essential oils. And the third type of person is somebody that's going, I would love to do what I'm doing and to share this information with other people and to educate other people. And just to let you know that because doTERRA is different, they don't advertise on TV.
Right.
However, I have a friend that had filmed a commercial, and she was sort of bragging to me that whenever that commercial airs, she gets a check in the mail, and she thought that was really cool because she's getting paid for something that she had done months ago. And I said, well, did you know doTERRA works the same way? And she said, what? And I said, when you share essential oils with other people, the company compensates you for those purchases. So it works much the same way. And that's another reason that doTERRA is so different.
Nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Want you go back up?
Yeah.
I know you have a flyer too. I don't know if you wanted to pass out your flyer.
Now, flyers are on the table in the lobby. If you would like one on doTERRA, please take one. We encourage everybody. They've been a help to us. And that's why I asked Miss Jill to come tell you about them. They've just been, huge. Most of you know Amanda. She has severe muscular problems. And we have a blend that she massages into her legs and her muscular problems go away. So it's incredible. That being said, it is a couple of minutes after 2. The meeting is supposed to end at 2, but my favorite speaker hasn't had an opportunity to speak yet. So would you ladies be willing to take a couple of minute break and come back in for one last session?
Sure.
All right, let's pray and we'll just have a couple of minutes worth of break, 2 minutes, and then we'll start with the last session. Father, we love you. Thankful for your grace. Thankful for the day, and we'll do one more session, Lord, and my wife will speak, close the day out. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless the day. In Jesus' name, amen. 2 minutes, ladies. Stretch your legs and come on back in. I knew you wouldn't do that, so that's why I did it.
Actually, I was going to today. I was going to surprise you. Because I actually wrote notes out.
Yeah, your note started a week ago, Michelle.
What?
Your note started a week ago.
Yes, my notes have started a year ago actually, but my notes went from in my brain to on a piece of paper. So that's a miracle in its own right. They never make it to paper.
Did you? Nice.
Yes.
There's mine next to the honey buns. I won't eat one.
It does.